So, hello everyone. Welcome to this online panel that is part of the Rebuilding Futures online conference organized by SPARK and Al-Fanar Media. The topic is how to best support startups and SMEs during and after the corona crisis. I understood from earlier sessions there has always been a very interactive and international crowd, so that's wonderful to hear. We also have a very strong panel, so I'll go to that in a second. Allow me to introduce myself first. Maybe you've already noticed, but I hope not, but I'm not a professional moderator. My name is Tijme Rozenboom, and I'm a special ambassador at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, focusing on youth employment and education. And I work for the Minister of International Trade and Development. So this really shows the importance from the Dutch ministry of focusing on the issues of youth employment, of skills and education, and specifically of how to bridge the gap. I see that my network is not stable, it says. I'm sorry about that if I'm sometimes maybe a bit sketchy. Nothing I can do about that. So what is very important is how to bridge the gap. We will talk about that later as well, between skills young people learn and jobs that are available, or jobs that they have to create themselves. So it's also about how to involve young people. We've also written a strategy on these issues as a ministry. It's called Youth at Heart. So for everyone who's listening I advise you to have a look at the website and see our strategy on youth education and work. It really focuses, apart from very much in the Middle East and Northern Africa, as does this panel, but also on the Horn and of Africa and in the Sahel. So the Netherlands supports SMEs and startups through this strategy, different programs, but also via NGOs such as SPARK, who is the co-organizer today, or Orange Corners, for example. And it's working on incubators, mentoring, access to finance, things that you will be that you're very aware of. It is also working on a conducive environment for entrepreneurship in the MENA region. This is about regulations, for example, but also about skills, which we just discussed, the importance of skills. So today we have a very good panel, very strong panel. I had the opportunity to talk already a bit. We've got Badour Al-Hiyari, Microfund for Women in Jordan. We've got Marta Krupinska, Google for Startups, based out of London. Well, we don't necessarily have Nabil Kezraoui, Director General of Zitona, but I hope he will be able to join in. And we got Dr. Ali Aisi from Kozgab in Turkey, also supporting SMEs. So we'll be discussing at this panel and they will introduce themselves a bit later, so they can wave now and they will have the floor a bit later. We'll be discussing how to support SMEs and startups during these crazy times, these difficult times, I have to say. We are seeing that Corona, and specifically the lockdown, is impacting economies around the world tremendously. And specifically startups and SMEs, also in the Middle East and Northern Africa. They're the engine of economic growth. We've always seen that. But now they're also struggling and they're more vulnerable, specifically in more fragile settings or for more vulnerable groups, such as refugees or actually young people or women. So we will see that it has a tremendous big effect. The World Bank has some alarming reports saying that it will have a negative supply shock and a negative demand shock in the region. So these are challenges, but there's also opportunities. We will touch upon both of them during this panel. I would like to turn now to the panel and ask them to introduce themselves and perhaps say a few words on how they see the Corona crisis affecting SMEs and startups. After this first round, I would like to just for the first half hour, then I would like to take some of the questions from the audience that I hope that are flowing in. So please, I tell everyone, you see that there's a message board where we'll be reading that and we'll be able to reply to that. But the first half hour, I would go to some panel discussions and ask our panelists to report some issues. I would like to ask the panelists not to take more than not to take more than 2 minutes for this. I will be timing it. So, but I won't be too strict. Let's just see how it goes. I trust that you'll all be brief and concise. I would like to start with Badour, if that's okay.
Sure. Hello, and everybody who's watching this session. Do you hear me? Yes. Yep. My name is Badour Lihyari. I'm heading business development and strategic planning at Microfund for Women. Microfund for Women is the leading microfinance non-for-profit institution in Jordan and in the region. We started in 1996, having empowering women and vulnerable segments of the community as our core mission, and we provide financial services along with non-financial services to support the segments that we are helping with microfinance. So we provide, in addition to the credit to people, we provide also microinsurance, and we provide non-financial services. We've recently also established Learning Academy with specialized trainings to give to the beneficiaries who take the loan, to support them in the skills required for the businesses. And also we do market linkages to these entrepreneurs. We have more than 150,000 active borrowers in Jordan. We cover all areas, and this is very brief about Microfund for Women. For the second part, how COVID-19 affected us and our beneficiaries. Our beneficiaries are the most vulnerable in communities, so they are the most affected segment of all this crisis. Right now, we can see some big companies are trying to come back because they can easily comply with the new requirements. However, the small businesses, medium, and the micro home-based businesses, they can't comply with requirements. They are not back to work yet from all sectors, so they are the most affected. That's why they will need our support the most as well. This is in general. We can talk more and further about it during the session.
All right, wonderful. Timon, I don't know if you'd like me to go next, but I'll take the opportunity. Thank you so much for...
Thank you. Marta, do you want to say some introductory remarks?
Yes, I would love that. I feel we have a little bit of a delay. Can I just check that you can hear me okay? If I can hear see some nods, that would be wonderful. All right. Really lovely to be joining you for this panel today. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Marta Kropinska, and I have the privilege of leading Google for Startups in the UK, but also working very closely with my colleagues in emerging markets in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Google for Startups is an arm of Google that provides access to tech startups to the best of Google's people, products, and connections. My day-to-day work comprises of finding and selecting startups from across the MEA that we can accelerate with a particular emphasis on companies that are built by women, by ethnic minorities, and by people who are using technology to really solve important social problems. So what's happening with the crisis, and what is Google doing about it? You might have heard Google CEO Sundar Pichai announce that Google is committing $800 million in resources targeted to help small businesses and those responsible for responding to the pandemic. That support sort of divides between grants in our ad products or cloud products, as well as a $200 million investment fund for underserved small businesses that would support financial institutions and other NGOs operating in this crisis. One of the things I've been working on was a partnership between Google.org and Youth Business International that are leading a rapid response program to back underserved micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, including in the Middle East during the COVID-19 crisis. Other bits that we're working on, my team have a special partnership with two organizations in the Middle East, one Astro Labs based out of Dubai and another Gaza Sky Geeks that is particularly close to my heart, a fantastic organization that is providing skills development, acceleration, and jobs to engineers in the Gaza region. And at the minute, numerous tech startups based out of the UK are collaborating with Gaza-based engineers to build their products so that we can both create employment in the region and still create value for startups in the UK. We're seeing all entrepreneurs across the region affected. I'm sure we're going to go into the detail, but we see that very much this is a financial crisis that we're entering. It is also a deeply human crisis. We see the disruption to everyday life that is caused by the fact that people need to lead their businesses as well as manage their cash flow, as well as take care of elderly families or take care of children, especially when we're thinking about women entrepreneurs, for instance. So we're really thinking how best we can provide that help and that access. But as we think of opportunities as well, a lot of my colleagues mention that hopefully what this can bring, as much as now we have this wonderful event delivered to us digitally, that perhaps we can see an acceleration of access to digital that is going to come in the next year. And off the back of this, a lot of digital opportunities for education or for business development will open. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, hello, please. Sorry, I was disconnected completely. I think it seemed that I've used another internet connection. Now I'm connected. I'm really sorry, I missed a bit. Dr. Ali, I think it was your turn to introduce yourself. Or am I incorrect? I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Timon. Hi, everyone. I've been working at SME Development Organization of Turkey as a SME expert since 2003. Nowadays, I'm taking part in international projects for the integration of Syrian refugees in Turkey. That's why we met with SPARK. And there are approximately 3.5 million businesses in Turkey, and 99.8% of these enterprises are SMEs. COSGAP is a major public institution established to support entrepreneurship and SMEs. And also COSGAP has almost 40 different support programs, support for SMEs and entrepreneurs, like entrepreneurship support, R&D technological production and domestication support, enterprise development support, finance support, like that. Thank you very much for this chance.
Thank you very much. I think actually now we have Nabil also with us, if I'm not mistaken. Nabil Kesraoui, do you hear us?
Hello, everybody. You hear me?
Yes.
Excuse me for the technical problem in the last minute. So I have a problem in my camera, so I cannot share with you camera. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Nabil Kesraoui, an associate professor in economics and management, having more than 20 years of experience as university professor, certified expert in microfinance from Frankfurt School, and holder of several Islamic finance certification from Sibafi, Bahrain. Actually, I am the managing director of Zaytuna Tamkin. Zaytuna Tamkin is the unique and the first Islamic microfinance institution in Tunisia and in the north of Maghreb Arab. It is considered as the first financial institution in Tunisia adopting the economic empowerment approach and following the principle of Islamic financing with the goal of promoting the financial and economic inclusion of youth and disadvantaged population. So we are financing and supported, actually after 3 years of operation, more than 7,000 micro projects in many sectors: agricultural sector, services, commerce, etc. So I'm happy to be with you today and to share with you our experience, how to support SMEs and startup in the crisis of Corona.
Thank you. We're also happy to have you there. Although it's only your voice, we know you're there. So I would like to ask another starting question to everyone. And that is actually, we know the issue is with financial support. That this is what startups and SMEs currently need. This is what a lot of your organizations are actually specialized in as well, providing that support. But I would like to hear some of the other challenges or solutions that exist. So what other ways are there aside from financial support? What do they actually need, startups and SMEs, currently during this crisis? So maybe I would like to ask everyone just very briefly for a minute to tell us in points, what is it that they need now?
All right, I'll jump in to start. So for the segment we're dealing with at the micro and small businesses, like basically they are different than other entrepreneurs because beside the money, they will need to know how to use the money, how to plan the business. That's even before the crisis at all. They produce really, like, look at our beneficiary, they develop and produce these good products, but they don't know how to package it well, market it well. This need is still there before the crisis and after it. However, what we can add to it is their skills that is really also behind in technology and using digital platforms for education. So they will still need to be to learn these things, how to run the business, how to market it, how to make a business plan, all these things. In addition to it, they need to really be able to use e-learnings, e-wallets that the government now is opening and facilitating, because if they're not going to use them, they will be really out of the market. So it's not just they will have small and minimal opportunities, they will be totally out of the market. In addition to the education, maybe I will highlight that also the segment will need to be taking care of health as well as insurance, because when we're talking about a segment who are out of the banking system, automatically they are out of the insurance, they are out of, also they will need a help in managing domestic violence that they might are facing in normal days, but now it's higher and higher. So also a psychological aspect is in addition to this. So because they will not be good entrepreneurs if they will have all domestic issues they are having in their houses. However, as a microfinance institution, we're focusing on, like, we're trying to link with the NGOs who are working on psychological support, these things. We're trying to provide micro-insurance through partnering with micro-insurance companies and insurance companies. But we're focusing on the learning academy that we are having. We have managed to, if I'm taking lots of time, please let me.
Well, I just wanted to say I'll ask you a question about skills perhaps a bit later as well.
Okay.
So maybe you can go into that then. Thank you so much. Marta, unmute, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You would think that a Google person would know how to use technology. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Badur was saying, and that emphasis on education and digital skills, as well as social support, we find is really important outside of obviously financial support or the skills of using existing resources well, so cash flow management or contingency planning. What we've also found is that there is, and this is companies large or small, is that the social distancing that we have created, in fact, the physical distancing that we need to emphasize needs to not be followed with social distancing by way of understanding, having access to peer groups and networks in which support can be provided. So it's not just organizations like all of those represented by us panelists or governments, but also communities still being able to come together and support each other and exchange their lessons and experiences as to how they can move forward in this crisis. So for us at Google, it's really been the three elements. It was financial support, it was education, and by the way, when it comes to digital education, I encourage everybody to look at grow.google.com, which is a website that provides resources on digital education, online marketing, connecting with users, shifting products to online, and a lot of work that Google has put into providing that digital education for free. And then the third element is very much about social support and providing networking opportunities between entrepreneurs in this difficult time.
Very good. Thank you very much. Nabil, if I may say Nabil, just to be short, can I ask you to go next?
Yes. Of course, the access to finance for SMEs is very, very important. However, there are many other factors that can support the startups and SMEs to rebuild and maintain their operation actually in this period after crisis. Specifically, the governmental intervention that is needed to provide entrepreneurs with coaching, accompaniment, and training throughout specialized incubators and public training structure. And in case of crisis, it must provide financial aids and certain advantages like the postponement of social and tax declaration. And we do that in Tunisia, actually. Boosting SMEs demand. The aim is to promote the demand for SMEs products and services, for instance, throughout public procurement. It's very important that the government involve the startup in the process of procurement of goods and services, so it will be a good opportunity to boost their sales in this difficult period. After that, protecting employment and social security. It is necessary is to preserve decent job in SMEs, for instance, throughout employment protection programs and entrepreneurship programs. For our case in Zitouna Temkin, we help our client beneficiary, SMEs and startups by many actions. We postpone client installment from 3 to 6 months between the period of March and August 2020 to relieve their cash flow and ensure their continuity, manage their daily expenses. We do not increase in interest on carryover in accordance with the standard of the Islamic finance, unlike the other MFIs that applied a carryover rate of 11%. We are studying actually the needs for financing adapted to the context of the crisis and accord additional financing and loans to relaunch the activities post-crisis clients. And we are remoting support for beneficiary to benefit from certain advantages provided by the regulation in times of crisis. And like say the colleague, we are supporting entrepreneurs for the review of their business model and introduce digitalization to reinforce their sales and to suggest solutions to avoid the spread of the contamination and to sell remotely throughout application. And I can take an example for a startup.
If you're very short with the example to take
okay, a little example, very interesting and amazing. It's named Intigo, and it's a startup for transportation by scooter. So in the period of the crisis, the person are in confinement, so there is not operation. So there is a big changement in the business model, and the Intigo startup ensure home delivery of your needs from food, hygiene product throughout a smartphone application. So this agility to changement is very required and very needed with the startup in this kind of crisis.
Yes, I can imagine. That is a good point. Dr. Ali, may I ask you to answer
Yeah,
this question briefly?
sure. I would like to give some field research founding what the SMEs are expecting. COSGAP conducted a survey with 18,000 SMEs to determine how much the SMEs were affected during the pandemic. I would like to share with it. And this period, they would like the cash return. They say they have a decrease in sales in sectors other than food and medical supplies. Cash return difficulties in accessing finance. And they are waiting us postpone on invoice, tax, and social security payments, tax deduction, financial support comes. In addition, also in another research, 20% of respondents request psychosocial support for employees. It's very interesting. And 20% require medical and protective material support, also for their workers, personally. I think that SMEs need training and consultancy in that period. Actually, COSGAP gives financial at this stage, but if SMEs buy such kind of training or consultancy, COSGAP support financially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting research, of course, that you have done in this regard. So thank you. I would actually like to go into the issue of skills, because I think it was mentioned a couple of times, the importance of education, of skills. Also, like I said in my introduction, also that we notice within our work at the Ministry of International Trade and Development Cooperation, the importance of matching skills and demands from the market. Especially when it's about entrepreneurial skills, which are a specific skill set you'll need for that. Which sometimes is a challenge, I understand, specifically or historically in the MENA region, in the Middle East, Northern Africa, where not every job, where the skill sets sometimes of people who are well educated doesn't always connect them to becoming an entrepreneur. At least that's what a lot of people told me. So I would actually like to ask both Nabil and Badur to very briefly, really briefly, because otherwise we don't have time for the audience, to go into specifically this issue of skills. So Badur, can I ask you first, and then Nabil? Is that okay?
Yeah, maybe I talked about it earlier, so I will not repeat myself. However, the digital thing, the digital education of all the skills required is costly. So, and because, as you know, the segment of the micro businesses, the startups, women in villages, this kind of women that we're supporting, their also digital literacy is low. So it will require a human-to-human interaction or over the phone, step by step to take them through it, which will make it also expensive. It will add operational cost, but they really require it because they will not exist without using it. Now we are opening for them e-wallets because they will not function anymore without having these they are unbankable. So the banking system with all its facilities, they don't use it. So the government has worked on an e-wallet solution, which is really good. But again, we need to build the trust of them, of the entrepreneurs on using these solutions. So it's the challenge. It's costly. Also, the challenge also to find now the suitable mentors to mentor the existing businesses. What is the new this time? What we require? For example, in the food production, the food production is in Jordan, for example, for the home-based businesses is a huge business, and lots of women are working on it. But these women need someone to help them think out of the box. For example, people will prefer frozen food instead of ready-made food. So they will need people to help them think of how to innovate what they need in this crisis, and to link them to providers who can provide the machine required to freeze the food and make it available for people to buy, because this is what people need and would like to have. So in general, like I will sum up very shortly, the skills required are the same ones. We need new tools, digital technology, which would require capacity building, which is costly, where we need support. However, the opportunity is that during the crisis, even those people who did not appreciate the digital tools, now they're appreciating them. They put on a way that you use it or you're out of the whole game. So it's at a certain point, it facilitated for us. Like, for example, we had e-learning courses. We succeeded to make more than 4,000 entrepreneurs use these online trainings while they were in total lockdown. So there is an opportunity as well with this COVID-19 and the lockdown that we have, the mandatory one that we have.
Okay. Thank you. That's very interesting. You also said essentially that I will ask Nabil. You said it's the same skills essentially, but perhaps do you agree with that, Nabil? Is it the same skills, or do you see because of this crisis the skills are changing?
No, I am not the same position with Budur. I think that after Corona, we need new skills, and specifically for entrepreneurs, there is many skills in relation with digitalization, importance of technology, capacity building, and we must specifically change the culture. The most required skills to do business in a post-COVID period word is to be open and flexible to change. You can also restructure your portfolio by moving your fund into what people need the most during the challenging times, health sector and technology. And I know that there is a center of training in English in Tunisia. It's an international center based named the Wall Street English. And in one day or 2 days, there is a big transformation to digitalize all activities. So 100% of the activity are actually in line and are in Facebook. And this is SMEs, which is very agile. So the skills that we need actually for all organization, I'm not speaking about only startup, for all organization, is to be resilient, so to be to have a quick agility to change. If we do not change, we will not survive after Corona crisis. So I can take the example of MFI. What are we doing?
If you can be a bit brief, then it's okay. But a bit brief.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Maybe because now you didn't agree with Budur, she immediately disappeared because I don't see her online anymore. But I hope that she'll be back, or it is just a technical glitch. I would actually like to move now to a next question that's part of this debate that is perhaps on a more positive note. So allow me to skip ahead to an issue of the potential new markets. You know, this also goes into the discussion about the new skills. Are there new markets that are being opened up in the digital sphere, as we just discussed, or, for example, in the agri business, or a combination of the two, of course? Is this something that you see? And I would like to ask Marta and Dr. Ali to go into this issue of potential new markets. Because, Marta, you're focusing on emerging markets and on startups. I can imagine you see these developments happening as they happen. So can you enlighten us a bit?
Of course, and yes, exactly. You're right that there's opportunity in any crisis, and we can definitely see a lot of very successful companies that have risen up after the even in the West, after the first .com crisis of the early 2000s, and then the global financial crisis 2007, 2008. So one thing we're really excited to see is that the corona crisis that is making us all work from our homes and work remotely with each other also shift some of the business practices. So for instance, we see venture capital investors or angel investors taking investment decisions or purchase decisions or deciding on sales deals completely remotely. That shifts the face-to-face culture of the business a little bit more to the remote culture. What that means is that entrepreneurs based in developing markets, in fact, have better access to a lot lot of the sources of funding that are mostly based in the US, in the UK, or in Western Europe, because essentially a conversation with an entrepreneur in Beirut would look very similar to having a conversation with an entrepreneur based in London, just on the other side of the city. So I do feel that the shift to digital is a very exciting one. There's definitely a point that we've already covered, which is this is essentially that acceleration of the use of digital, both because we are getting better skills, also because we invest more in hardware. More families or more people in the family will now have to find a way to get access to a device that they will be able to use. And off the back of this, they will be being more innovative and more playful with the technology, off the back of which there is a lot of opportunity. And what I'm finding fascinating, especially, is what we're seeing in Africa and the Middle East, with teenagers using technology and learning to code and finding ways to unleash their creativity through technology. But when it comes to industries, we're obviously seeing a lot of innovation happening in health tech, in agri-tech, in energy solutions, in education, and what I'm particularly excited about is how well many of these solutions can travel, how a solution built in one part of the world can really be very well applied in another. I'll give an example of a startup called Fibris, that is currently based out of the UK, but their proof of concept was built in India, where they built an artificial intelligence algorithm that, paired with a digital stethoscope, would help to identify respiratory diseases without the help of a medical professional. So we're talking about parents or teachers being able to diagnose pneumonia without an X-ray or without being a doctor. Now, that was a very successful pilot done in India. That technology traveled very easily to the UK, where it is currently being used in elderly care homes, where in the corona crisis, we had to quickly identify who has respiratory diseases or who might have corona. So what I'm really excited about is how quickly technology can translate from one market to another, which creates obviously opportunities for entrepreneurs.
Thank you. That's a very good inspirational example. Dr. Ali, do you see these new opportunities, new markets?
Yeah, actually, I agree with my colleagues. Also, I would like to add that nowadays the importance of a self-sufficient economy comes to the forefront with the development of important sectors, especially agriculture. Support for health and high-tech products will continue to increase. We see that SMEs that use electronic commerce have turned to online shopping and brought the digitalization process to a certain stage, have gained an advantage in this process. This crisis has even turned into a serious opportunity for those companies, online trading companies. For example, I haven't been going to the supermarket for 2 months. I order online and I will do it online after Corona. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to say that actually there is more people who joined in for the last 15 minutes, so to say. So to them, I would also say for 5 more minutes, I'll discuss with the panelists one last question, and then actually I would see if there are some questions from the floor. I see one specific one, but now is your opportunity to type them, and so we can still respond to them. So my last question that I have prepared for the panel, so the ones that are not from the floor, is actually about cooperation. And I would like to leave it now for a second with Dr. Ali, because this cooperation between government, NGOs, private sector is something I can imagine that you're also looking into. It's closely related to your work. How do you see the opportunities there in this cooperation?
Actually, Corona period also witnessed different examples of cooperation. University, organizations, small companies, big companies. And the most painful question of the COVID outbreak is 2 patients and a respirator, which one is the priority? I think it's the major one. The rapid spread of coronavirus caused disruption in healthcare services worldwide. A company that was established in 2012 and commercialized its product with the support of COSGAP in 2017, started mass production with the cooperation of 3 big companies, provided state support, universities, NGOs, all together. Then, like these micro enterprises, like enterprises, research institutions, cooperate all together. As a result of this cooperation, not only Turkey's respiration meets their needs, but also this device was also sent to many countries, like the Somalia as the aid, and the people were able to live. I think such kind of cooperation will be control to all these countries. I mean, NGOs, universities, big companies, and micro companies should come together, and also government support should support such kind of contributions. Thank you.
Yes. Well, you're very right. Can I also ask Nabil lastly to look at this question? Perhaps I know you have a lot of experience in the agricultural sector. Maybe that is something you could highlight, because I always think it's very important to spend enough time to talk about that sector as well.
I think that there is a huge collaboration between government, NGOs, and the private sector to join their forces to support entrepreneurs. For example, the government can support entrepreneurs throughout protecting SMEs' working capital. The aim is to help SMEs preserve liquidity, for instance, throughout tax relief measure and social security contribution, improving access to finance for SMEs, improving access for SMEs to public procurement, and finally, protection, employment, and social security. For NGOs, they can support entrepreneurs throughout support program and present free financing solution in crisis times to startups and SMEs like grant and subsidies. Training and coaching on management of crisis. It's very important in this time. And I think also international NGOs can help via donors and government, the financial institution like MFI, like Zitouna Tamkin, for example, that need to diversify their funding sources, which will directly affect startup and SMEs by reducing the cost financing and increasing their profitability and ensure the liquidity needed in this difficult period to offer the support needed by SMEs and startup in form a grant line of financing or guarantee fund. Finally, the private sector can support entrepreneurs throughout developing economic empowerment projects in partnership with a microfinance institution or NGO. With this economic empowerment project, we can ensure access to market throughout the private sector, the off-taker, to be a partner in projects with high potential added value in terms of job creation and maintain creation, and to reach the greatest number of beneficiaries. In this case, the microfinance institution or the financial institution will ensure the business engineering project and the appropriate financial products.
Okay, thank you very much. I would actually now turn to, at least I'm again asking people, I see that there's more of you online still to send in your questions. For now, I have one very specific one, which I actually like. So I can ask that one first. It is about crowdfunding, and Mazen has asked that. What the opportunities actually are now for crowdfunding. Is this something that you see as being actually very impactful, or not so much during this current crisis? Who can I give the floor? Maybe just the first one to unmute wins.
Yes.
Apologies.
You're back. Very good. Now take the floor.
As we know, the crowdfunding is relatively a new method of funding a project or cause by aggregating small amounts of money from a large group of people, called the crowd, using the internet and social media. Maybe during this crisis and for the sake of the best cause, it will be very great to raise money from the investors and specifically from the social investors and to engage the community to help the SMEs and startups to rebuild their operation. And in our sector, the microfinance, we will have a big percentage of micro entrepreneurs that will fall down. So we need this kind of crowdfunding to rebuild the activities of these micro enterprise in kind of micro credit, in kind of micro sadaqa, in kind of micro zakat. And I think that there is many kind of crowdfunding in the world, based on debt or based on grants or based on equity. And I think in this case of crisis, the micro project, the SMEs need that they will be supported by crowdfunding based on grants.
Okay, thank you. Is someone else wants to respond on the crowdfunding question?
Yes. Yes, crowdfunding is very helpful because most of entities who are doing crowdfunding are supporting with the interest, so it's lower cost on us to lend to entrepreneurs. However, I think we need now, if we wanted to be more responsive to the COVID-19, maybe as my colleague has just mentioned, we need to discuss certain conditions where they can accept the cases for crowdfunding. And I think this goes for both, for crowdfunding entities who are organizing the crowdfunding and also the donors themselves, to give more easier conditions and extended it also to other aspects and purposes.
Thank you very much. Just generally, apart from crowdfunding, which is another, goes back into funding again, maybe I can ask Marta to respond to this a bit. Also, because as a not-for-profit, how can you support? And so maybe go into the crowdfunding issue, but also generally on what kind of support you could offer, or an organization such as.
Yes, thank you for this question. So as I said, Google as an organization provides all types of support for small businesses and entrepreneurs. There is the $800 million grant or contribution that Google is making across all of our product areas to support battling the COVID-19 crisis. I'd say the main ones that I would focus on at the minute would be the work that google.org is doing with organizations on the ground, and I can see almost all of the efforts we've now discussed, such as supporting microfinance organizations, providing working capital, or providing skills and education training, is a big part of what we do. Then there is the digital skills and education part of Google called Grow with Google, and that was the link that I've given before, grow.google.com, that provides free education on all subjects from digital marketing, coding, business planning, operations, mobile and web apps. So it's a really lovely repository of knowledge for those that have the capacity and the access to be able to study that. Then there is Google developer groups. So there are organizations throughout the region called Google developer groups, where young or actually experienced engineers can come together and, with the support of Google engineers, really improve their craft and be able to also, with those skills, get access to jobs and opportunities also remotely. So I mentioned the work that we do in Gaza with our partner Gaza Sky Geeks, where we are creating jobs for entrepreneurs based in that region. And what I definitely do see, also working with startups in the United Kingdom, is that many are looking for workers that they would be able to hire remotely for as long as the skill is there and the passion for the product. There's a lot of opportunities for remote work. And then when it comes to Google for Startups specifically, we are equity free and free in terms of we don't take any payment for the work that we do, and we organize accelerators for tech startups that are based throughout EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We're in the process of choosing 20 startups from across Africa who will participate in our Google for Startups Accelerator. So we're looking for young companies, up to 10 employees, that are building technology that is solving important problems or creating big economic contributions to their region. And in 2021, hopefully, as we're coming out of this crisis, we're planning another big program for the entirety of emerging markets in EMEA, so that we can again find which are the promising startups that are building technology that can scale throughout the world. So hopefully we're not only seeing startup success stories out of Silicon Valley or London, but also from all the parts of the globe that you so beautifully represent.
That's a very good. We all hope that, and the possibilities for for outsourcing some of those services perhaps are of course very big. These are challenges, but there's a typical example of challenges and opportunities at the same time. So it's interesting you went into that. Maybe just lastly on the issue of access to finance and the type of support the institution can give as well. Maybe I can give the floor to Dr. Ali, and then I'll just go to some concluding remarks.
Okay, if it comes to financial support, consumer habits have changed in this period. That's why the governmental support need to evaluate for these needs. If you look at that, let's say, for example, the Economic Stability Shield package was announced March 18, and with this package, tax payments postponed, public banks gave loans under special conditions. I think such kind of support will be expanded all of the companies. In order to ensure the production and commercialization of middle, high, and high technology fields in the fight against the virus, or the production and commercialization of products will be better area for this financial support programs. Also, IP rights trainings is the other major programs for new entrepreneurs. I think that.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see. There are some other questions that came on, but the one indeed for microcredit support has been mentioned, I think, quite specifically. So maybe I will leave that for now, because I would like to also ask you a bit of an important thing that I think in my position as well, what we really notice is the huge challenge, not just during this crisis, but generally, as I said in my introduction, for young people. It's been mentioned as well, but I think it is always important to highlight that. On the one hand, during this crisis, you see that they're being extra hard hit with schools closing, with last in, first out, with a lot of vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, we also see that young people are taking quite a positive role, as in really being amongst the first responders, being amongst the parties that are being looked at. And that really comes from all my discussions with young people around the world, who really say that they are often the ones who are being looked at for innovative solutions, digital solutions. And I assume that you might see that as well in your work. So to specifically make sure that we actually take along young people when we are working on employment is really something I would like to highlight. So maybe someone just from the panel would still want to respond as a last response, because this is really close to my heart, so to say, and I also really think that we should all get better at making sure that young people, when they are actually the ones who we want to reach, are actually also being heard and being taken along and being seen as a partner and not just as a potential beneficiary. So I'd be happy to hear one or two more comments of people, how they are going to integrate this prospects of young people in what they do, before I close it off. If you keep it short, because we got 2 more minutes.
So definitely youth is is a segment that we are focusing on as well, and this would require more burden on, like, if I'm a financial institution, I will lend it will put more burden on me to support them more and making the decision of how much amount of the loan should be giving to them. So what I want to say to the people here and to my colleagues, all to us, to build partnerships where it enables us to support the startups and give them what they lack. So the assessment, to put more efforts on assessing their needs, because they will be very ambitious, give me 100,000 and I will do this and this. So maybe we can support them by gradually give them the money and assess them properly, but definitely give them the opportunity that they will require to do their business.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you all see it in your screen, but I have a big red button saying time is up, 1 minute left. So I'm going to round it up here. I would really like to thank the panelists for very interesting contribution. I see that during the time that you were speaking, the amount of people joining us kept on going up. So I guess that's very good. And thank you. I thought it was very insightful. I'm also asked to actually tell everyone that you can go to the next session now, which is online business coaching. That sounds very interesting as well. On mentoring needs, for example, which we also mentioned today. And actually, there's also a meet and greet happy hour at the end of the day. Don't ask me how that works when we all only have our own fridge to walk to. But please all join that. And so on behalf of me, and I guess also of the panelists, thank you all for joining. And thank the panelists for the insights, and thanks for the audience for some of the questions. And 7 seconds left. I'm ending this talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dejim, and thanks for all colleagues, and good